Welcome back. It's Vasiliki Nihas, and I'm with Dr. Gloria Wright. As you know already, my background is in education, particularly cultural diversity and multicultural education. I'm fascinated by difference. Dr. Gloria Wright is also fascinated by difference. We come at it in a slightly different way. But what we're going to start talking about today relates to the book that Gloria has written, which is called The Medicalization Trap. And the book actually talks about that process of how we actually go from this perfectly wonderful, normal child that's born to a label called ADHD. Okay, Gloria, I'm curious, why did you call it the medicalization trap?
So medicalization is where we actually attach a medical label or a medical diagnosis to something that has actually no pathological basis or evidence, right?
Right.
So that's why we call it medicalization. This term was actually introduced by a wonderful researcher, academic, Peter Conrad in 1976, who first explored the career, if you like, of a child becoming ADHD.
Career, that's an interesting term, isn't it?
Yes, so he tracked certain things, and his work has influenced me quite a great deal. So building on that and moving in a different angle, I've looked at Australian research, and I've gone really quite deeply into 4 cluster families. I interviewed the doctors, the teachers, parents, and the children themselves.
So what that's telling me is there's a huge complexity because there are going to be interweaving roles, and I'm guessing that even both parents don't always have exactly the same view on how this happens.
You're so right. Yes, you're so right. So I saw some quite interesting things coming up between in differences of opinion between mothers and fathers, and that's in my book. There's a whole chapter on what I call he blame, where maleness is blamed for a lot of things. Usually it's boys that are diagnosed as having ADHD, that's the majority. So there's a little boy child not necessarily being blamed, but being the centre of problematic behaviour.
This is like the kid in the supermarket who goes ballistic.
Well, it could be that, but often I found in my research that it was a range of things that were bothering mothers. It was crying behaviour, and this is quite children who are quite young.
Yes.
Parents reflecting, saying, "Look, I always knew there was something wrong from the very beginning. He didn't sleep well. He didn't," and these things, of course, have no correlation with indicators for ADHD. So the mothers were contextualised in quite stressful situations, although different in themselves. And the theme of male blameness was coming out in the studies that I conducted.
I guess part of the problem is how a situation where behaviour, that a whole range of different views, may kind of impact on, like, would I call that appropriate behaviour? Would you call it inappropriate behaviour? Something like that very quickly escalates, and the rapidity with which it becomes the problem, I think, is something that's worrying me.
And for the mothers that are trying to manage these tiny children that are it's just difficult. It's really difficult. It's particularly difficult in today's world where there are all sorts of things pulling on our time.
Distractions.
Yeah, and for many mothers, they're trying to work, to get it right, to balance relationships, and to even perhaps snatch a little time for yourself just to feel human. And they want answers. They want solutions. They want to know how to fix this. Well, yes, but it's not in any way to categorise the mothers as being the bad people here. These people, mothers, are wonderful people who really want to understand what's going on, and Google plays a huge role. Now, Google, we all love it. I love it. You love it. We all go to Dr. Google to find things out, right? But the problem that we have is that the keywords that we put in, whatever they might be, will come up with particular
behaviours, to
absolutely
diagnosis.
And this then leads us down to a way of understanding the nature of our problem that puts us in a particular mindset. So I think of it like this. It's as if, imagine this, you're going to paddle your way down a stream, and you approach the bank, and there you see a number of canoes lined up. And you'll go for a paddle in one of those canoes. You have your child with you. In you hop into the canoe. And on that canoe, we have actually particular names. Like, when I was a kid, I had a canoe called Hiawatha. I had many an adventure in that canoe. But I visualise it as one of those canoes might be called ADHD, another might be called Asperger's, a number might be called various other things that are available there. And for whatever reason, we're in the canoe with a particular way of thinking about it, and we're paddling down that stream. With a child in tow. Really, the child has no say in the matter.
No.
And along the way, we see medical help on the bank, and we go over and we want that help. The problem is, however, that as we journey down that long stream, that stream becomes a delta. And a never-ending delta.
Different ways to go.
And so coming back to your question, why is this called a trap? It's because as I looked longitudinally with what was happening with the families that I looked at, they really didn't get a great outcome anyway. And
you mean after medicalisation?
After it still didn't give them the great solutions and hope that they were looking for. Now, this is not to say that there can't be some great news stories for people that have had a diagnosis and perhaps even had some medication. This is not to rule that out at all or to challenge it, but it is to say that it isn't necessarily a guarantee of great things happening, and it doesn't always find the solution that people are looking for. In fact, for one mother in particular, she said, look, it's just like I've been caught in a vice and I don't know how to get out of it. And that's the problem.
It seems to me there's a sense of impotence in terms of the children, impotence in terms of the parents, and that kind of lack of empowerment is just symptomatic of some of the things that happen in society today. We're in a kind of a cultural vice as well, whereby everything has to be immediate, everything like rapid fire solutions, but we live in an age of distraction. It's kind of like a global phenomenon that, you can't do anything other than kind of play with the iPhone for more than 30 seconds before you turn on to the next topic.
There's been some really interesting studies done on that, Vasiliki, but it's not all a bad news story. You see, there are things that we can do. The thing that concerns me most in diagnosis is that parents often just don't think of certain basic things to rule out. What about the child's hearing? What about vision? What about diet?
Yes.
What about nutrition? What about sleep?
So-called obvious.
Yeah. What about what's going on at home with mum and dad having perhaps some conflict going on at home? There's a lot of things that we need to unpeel when we look at a problem to do with a child. I urge people to not just quickly run down that track of putting a medical diagnosis onto a situation just like that. Because it isn't really what we need to do anyway.
It's complexity, and complexity requires time. It's not about quick fixes.
It's about data. It's about getting high quality data where it really matters. And that involves looking at the problem. Think of the eye of a bee. A bee sees things from all sorts of angles, right? But if we just take one lens and we look at a problem from a medical point of view only and a mental health point of view only, then we rule out all the other rich data that's available. We might say, who's got time? Well, the facts of the matter are we owe this to our children to find time to do this properly. We want solutions. We want our kids to thrive and be happy. We want to take off the straitjacket of labels. We want our children to be able to live into their gifts and abilities. Our planet needs creative, wonderful people.